Yesterday, the first reporting of it, long after 24 hours, a day after, which gave, I suppose, space for the police to do all of that early work unimpeded.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because it was more than 24 hours after her body was discovered that the police said that it was suspicious and they had launched a murder investigation. But in some ways, as you say, that gave the police some breathing space. It gave them a bit of time. It gave them a chance to carry out their initial investigations, perhaps without the gaze of the public spotlight, under the media spotlight, under the scrutiny. And that perhaps also explains why we had perhaps quite an unusually lengthy statement from the police outlining what they knew so far, the fact that she had been discovered at her property yesterday morning, deceased, as they put it, and that their investigation is wide-ranging, that it's moving at pace, that they have a suspect they're describing as a white male. So certainly the police taking their time to put out that information, but when they have released that information, then we do have a fair amount of detail there. And it'll be interesting to see what more, if anything, they add at this news conference, which we're waiting for.
Simon, thanks very much. Still no word about the start of that news conference. Just looking at the clock already, we've gone past the time it was scheduled for, but no surprise of any delay. It is a major news conference they will have, and they were getting their latest detail ready to present to the media. Let's bring Dal Babu back in because we've re-established that line. Apologies that we lost you. You were taking us through just what the police do in the early hours in investigation like this. I just wonder if you could pick up with that thought.
Yeah, so the golden hour, so as soon as the ambulance service called the police, they would ensure that murder investigation officers or officers who are experienced, CID officers, attend. They would have then made sure that they've got a senior investigating officer appointed, and that officer, he or she, would then take responsibility. Now, comms will be very important, as well as the traditional things around forensics, witness, scene preservation. Given the nature of Ann Widdecombe and her high-profile status, it would have been absolutely essential for the police to have a good comms strategy. The difficulty they have is with social media. There will be a huge amount of speculation. The police will no doubt ask for that speculation not to happen, but unfortunately, there will already be stories on the internet, which the police will find very, very difficult to control. But the key thing here is for the police now to give and share information at the earliest opportunity, because when you have a void, then there's an opportunity for people to put information in there, whether it's malicious or maligned or deliberate or with the best intentions. So the police will want to fill that void, give as much information as they can, and then look at making sure that they can start that investigation in earnest. And if there's any persons of interest, they'll want to share that information with a view to helping the public identify people and locate people.
Dal, you make a number of points which I will return to. I just want to come away from you for a second or two because more political reaction has come in. We heard from the Home Secretary a while ago. Let me tell you, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has just said that she is, quote, stunned to hear the death of Ann Widdecombe is being investigated as murder. Speaking to broadcasters, she said she struggled to find the words and didn't understand how someone can do something so horrific to an elderly person. And she then went on to pay tribute to the former Conservative minister as, quote, a fun and feisty woman who spoke her mind, and said her party was, quote, reeling. So understandably, the shock that we were talking about, Simon, and when I was talking to Nick Eardley a little while ago about the shock in the public and politicians at Westminster since this news broke about an hour or so ago that police had started a murder investigation, reflected absolutely in the statement there from the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, talking about being stunned and struggling to find the words. She has recorded something, and we will bring that to you in the next few moments. But Dal, let me bring you back in because, as I say, you made a number of points, and actually a number of the things that you touched upon were included in the police written statement they have put out, specifically around social media, exactly the sorts of things that you were warning against, but also talking in some detail about the person they're trying to locate. They believe it's a white male because the public, when they get to the news conference, the public are going to be really important in any investigation, aren't they?
Absolutely. I think the police will want to keep responsible media like BBC, ITV, Sky engaged and make sure that they utilise those outlets, those broadcast outlets.
Well, apologies, we've lost the line again. It's clearly a pretty unstable line there to Dal Babu, former Chief Superintendent for the Metropolitan Police. We will return to Dal perhaps after we've had the news conference, but let me bring Simon back in. And Simon, slowly, and it is probably because of the scale of this news, slowly we're beginning to get the beginnings of more political reaction, and straight away you can see how stunned politicians are. Well,
stunned is the word that the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has used to describe the death and the circumstances surrounding it. And we will certainly be hearing from the other political leaders too, because they will be as shocked as anyone hearing this news, because at the start of the day, this was a story about a prominent politician who'd got into celebrity lifestyle as well, and dancing programmes, who people were paying tribute to. But now, during the afternoon, it's turned into a death of huge significance, because it's a suspicious death and now a murder investigation launched by the police. So I think the politicians will be trying to come to terms with the news that they're hearing, and will be choosing their words carefully, because they'll also know, as well as expressing their shock, as well as expressing how they're feeling, that this is an active, ongoing police investigation. And no doubt, like the Home Secretary, who we've heard from, she will want to be kept up to date with this police investigation. The Home Office offering the police any support, any resources they need. But this is primarily a police-led investigation. So as well as the shock, politicians will want to let the police get on and get on top of this situation.
I'll go back to Dal Babu in a moment, but before I do, I just want to update viewers, because we've been saying really clearly and repeating what the police had said to the media, that they'll be holding a news conference at 4:30 from Exeter. We are now being told that that has been delayed till 5 o'clock. No great surprise that there's any delay. This is a major investigation. That is a major press conference where, as Dal has been saying, as Simon has been saying, they obviously have to give the crucial details, work out what they want to say, what they don't want to say, what they want to withhold as part of their investigation, what to appeal to the public in terms of getting their help, in terms of trying to find and trace anyone that is at the centre of their investigation. So no great surprise that they pushed it back another half an hour. So we're about 20 minutes away from that getting underway if it starts at 5 o'clock. Dal, let me bring you back in. Hopefully the line might have stabilised a bit, but it is going to be really important, isn't it, what they choose to make public and what they choose not to?
Yes, I mean, I think it's obviously a moving beast at the moment, and more information may be coming in as we speak. And as you said, the police will have to decide what they're going to share and what they're not going to share. And even in the last few minutes, as this news has broke, there may be some people who've got information which the police will think, well, we need to make a decision about whether we share that or not. So I think it's going to be an incredibly challenging time for the police to try and make the right decisions at this difficult time, with the huge amount of scrutiny that is going to be on them.
I'm sure you don't know the exact details, and it's a little tough for me to ask you questions like this, but just generally, when we hear that Devon and Cornwall, the force's major crime investigation team, will be leading the investigation, what would be the usual size of a team like that?
Well, I mean, I don't know the size, but I think with something like this, their resources will be pulled in from all across Devon and Cornwall. If they are looking for a person of interest, they will be sharing this information with other police forces up and down the country. So even though Devon and Cornwall is a relatively small force, it will have huge amounts.
Simon, let me bring you back in. The line in and out, Dal Babu, keeps failing us, but we had more reaction there from Westminster, and we'll play you what the Conservative leader has been saying to the media in a moment or two, because I think it's just come into us, as I was saying, the Conservative leader giving her first political reaction, being asked about these developments. Of course, through the course of the morning, there were so many tributes from the Conservatives and other parties after news of Ann Widdecombe's death. But since this major development about a murder investigation, well, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has spoken to reporters. Let me play you that now.
I'm stunned. To be honest, I don't really have the words for what we've discovered has happened. Ann Widdecombe was 78 years old. She was a fun and very feisty person, but she was an elderly person. I don't understand how someone could do something like this. It's a nasty, horrific attack. And I'm just heartbroken thinking about her family. It's one thing when an elderly person dies, but to know that this is that they were killed, I can't imagine what they must be going through. And I understand that the person is still at large. I hope that the perpetrator is caught as quickly as possible, so that he is not a danger to anyone else.
Well, that was the Conservative leader. Let me bring Simon back in, and I suspect that is going to be reflective of so much of the political reaction we're likely to see in the coming hours.
Yeah, and you get a sense of the reaction there from the Conservative leader when she used words like stunned and heartbroken and thinking about Ann Widdecombe's family. And actually, Ann Widdecombe was last on the airwaves just a couple of days ago. She appeared on Talk TV, where she was speaking about the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage and giving Nigel Farage her backing. So it's only a couple of days ago that we last heard from her, and then yesterday the news that she was found dead at her home and a murder investigation has been launched. In terms of the political reaction as well, we have heard from the Home Secretary, who is saying that the police will be given any resources that they need to carry out their investigation. Yeah, we're seeing pictures just at the moment of Ann Widdecombe appearing on Talk TV. That was broadcast just a couple of days ago. And then the day after that, she was found dead in her home.
And we were reporting, you were reporting, what we heard from our correspondent who is there at the scene. We haven't got images of that, we haven't got pictures of that, but Jenny Kumar giving us just an idea, a snapshot of what is actually happening in the village. It's a pretty small village, isn't it?
Yeah, she says there's very few properties there, but people she's been speaking to have already expressed their sense of shock, and she's talking about there being a heavy police presence outside the home of Ann Widdecombe. Several police cars, she says, she has seen in the road outside, and a police van on the driveway of the property. Several officers are busy carrying out their investigations at the property. Sense of shock and sadness here at the details that are emerging. And she describes the house as being in a remote rural area close to the small village of Hayter Vale, and there aren't very many other properties nearby. So a very rural area, quite an isolated area. So that may pose some challenges for the police investigation in terms of what people may have seen, whether they saw any suspicious activity, whether they may have seen the suspect, who they're describing as a white male. So the police will be keen to gather as much information as they can from the local community. No doubt in the 24 hours plus since she was found dead and the police launched this investigation before making it public, they will already have been speaking to neighbours, to people living in properties in the area, just to try to ascertain whether they can shed any light on what may have happened here. But certainly a big police presence in the area, partly as part of that investigation, with forensic teams coming and going from the property, also to preserve this crime scene, to try and get as much information as possible about what may have happened, and also to try and provide some reassurance to the local community, because as we heard from the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, the suspect is still, as she put it, at large, still somewhere out there, and that'll be the key thing for the police, to track that suspect down.
Well, we just played you the first reaction that was being recorded with the Conservative leader. Let me tell you, the Prime Minister has been speaking in the last few minutes, has described it as really shocking news that police have launched this murder investigation into Ann Widdecombe's death, praising the former MP as, quote, a distinguished politician. We'll play you that clip. we should have it for you in the next couple of moments, but that's certainly one of the lines from Keir Starmer reacting like so many politicians there at Westminster, struggling to actually comprehend this development. As Kemi Badenoch was saying, she was stunned, she struggled, she said, to find the words, didn't understand how someone can do something so horrific, she said, to an elderly person. So we play you what the Prime Minister has said in a moment or two. But Simon, coming back to you, I was asking Dal Babu about the Major Force Crime Investigation Team that we know is looking into this from Devon and Cornwall Police and the size of that and all of that. But we know the Home Office has offered to be ready to provide any support that is needed. But at the moment, as we're talking, this is an investigation that is still in the hands of Devon and Cornwall Police, isn't it? Yes,
and they will take primacy in this investigation. What the Home Office will be doing is saying to the force, if you need extra support, if you need expertise in this case, then we can help you with that. But this is an investigation led by the force, which will be an independent investigation. Obviously, there'll be a lot of pressure on the police, given the nature of the person who has died here, a prominent politician, a woman who was part of political life for decades. So the police will know that this is a major investigation, and what they will want to do is track down that suspect, the person they have described as a white male. They'll be keen to provide any further details too about what may have happened.
Well, Simon, let me just return to some of the things the Prime Minister has just said in his statement. We'll play you that as soon as we have it in here at the BBC. I don't think it's that far away, but I brought you one of the lines. I'm just reading a couple of the others where he was asked whether Ann Widdecombe's murder is believed to have been politically motivated. Keir Starmer saying that the security of politicians is, quote, of the utmost importance, but he would not speculate on any potential motive. So he's asked about that. He said, it is really important we remain vigilant. I'm not going to speculate about this particular case. He then goes on to say the Chief Constable has briefed me on the details as they're known at the moment, but I think it's very important for us to have in our thoughts the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe. And to be clear, the single most important thing at the moment is that the suspect is apprehended as quickly as possible by the police. And he goes on to say, I urge everyone listening or watching who has got any information at all which may be of assistance to the police to come forward to make sure that someone who is clearly dangerous is apprehended as quickly as possible, and the police investigation can proceed on that basis. So a number of different important things there from Keir Starmer, just giving his initial reaction. Let me just turn back to looking at the clock, because I just updated you a few minutes ago that the police press conference that had been due to start at 4:30 is now slated for 5 o'clock. So we're getting pretty close to that. I'll play you the Prime Minister's response in a moment or two, but let me bring in Shabnam Chowdhury, a former detective superintendent with the Met Police here in London, and thank you for being here with us. I was talking to Dal Babu a short while ago, but the line wasn't massively stable, so we lost him at different stages, but we were making the point, or he was making the point, that it's very important as we head to this news conference for that detective team deciding on what they choose to make public and what they choose to actually keep to themselves.
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I think the communication strategy is going to be key to this investigation, because at the moment they've got an outstanding suspect. So they will be appealing to anybody local, but also nationally, for two things. One, obviously, any witness inquiries, but also to ensure that the right information is passed out to the public so that this individual can be apprehended at the earliest opportunity so that they can bring the offender to justice.
Well, that was what the Prime Minister was also saying. Shabnam, I was just going to pause you there because I was reading out some of the quotes from Keir Starmer. We have that recorded interview now on camera, so let me play that to you now.
Prime Minister, this is a very shocking development. What more can you tell us about the death of Ann Widdecombe?
Well, this is really shocking news. And my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe at this awful time for them. Anne was a distinguished politician over many, many years with many achievements, and it's a huge, huge loss. I've spoken to the Chief Constable this afternoon about the details, and I think this is really important, that this is a moment where we rise above any political differences, the political divide, and say the single most important thing at the moment is that all of us and the public help the police identify the individual suspected and make sure he's arrested as quickly as possible. He's clearly dangerous, and I implore everybody who's got any information in relation to him to help the police with their inquiries, get him into police custody. To that end, I've spoken to the Speaker of the House, I've spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, I've spoken to Nigel Farage as the Leader of Reform, and I've spoken to Andy Burnham to urge everybody to come together at a moment like this and to urge everybody to help the police. But go back to where I started. My thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, a distinguished politician over many, many years.
We have seen political violence against politicians in recent years. Is there anything to suggest that Ann Widdecombe's murder was politically motivated? And is the government planning to increase the security of serving or retired politicians in light of this murder?
The security of politicians is of the utmost importance, and we have enhanced it in recent years. It's really important we remain vigilant. I'm not going to speculate about this particular case. The Chief Constable has briefed me on the details as they're known at the moment, but I think it's very important for us to have in our thoughts the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, and to be clear, the single most important thing at the moment is that the suspect is apprehended as quickly as possible by the police. And I urge everybody listening or watching this who's got any information at all which may be of assistance to the police to come forward to make sure that someone who is clearly dangerous is apprehended as quickly as possible, and the police investigation can proceed on that basis.
Well, that was the Prime Minister speaking in the last few moments, talking about his shock. You heard him there being asked about whether this was politically motivated. Of course, in the last decade, we've seen the murder of the Labour MP Jo Cox and the Conservative MP David Amess. But wouldn't be drawn on that, the Prime Minister. Let me bring Simon back in, because we were hearing there from the Prime Minister, we heard from the Conservative leader. You have more political reaction as well, don't you?
Yeah, and the word shocked is one we're hearing a lot, unsurprisingly, this afternoon. We've heard from Lord Howard, the former Conservative leader, and he has told BBC Kent he is truly shocked by what he called this terrible news, and he said he's deeply saddened. Now, of course, he locked political horns with Ann Widdecombe. They were both Kent MPs, but they clashed when they were both at the Home Office. She famously said that he had something of the night about him, but obviously, as the Prime Minister was saying just there, at times like these, political differences are put to one side, and he has described what happened as terrible news. I think interestingly from the Prime Minister there, really focusing on that police investigation and the importance of tracking down the suspect, described as a white male. The Prime Minister saying this is a dangerous person and the police need to find this person, but not wanting to get into speculation about whether this death may have been politically motivated. He's saying at the moment the utmost importance is finding the suspect and allowing the police to get on with their investigation, but also a plea from him to put political differences aside at this stage.
Simon, stay with me. Let me go back to Shabnam Chowdhury, former Detective Superintendent with the Met. You will have been hearing the Prime Minister talking about the need to actually apprehend somebody who he said was clearly dangerous, and talking about the need for anyone in the public who had information to come forward and help the police. You were mentioning it right at the start when I spoke to you. The public are going to be hugely important in all of this, aren't they?
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think there's two key things here. First of all, you've got the homicide investigation team who will have their own investigation strategy, investigative strategy, forensic strategy, which will also include a digital strategy. So it may be CCTV, ring doorbells and so on. But I think something that I picked up on earlier on was something that I think is really important is that Anne lives in a very remote area. And that area may not be known to some officers, so they will need local officers with local knowledge who have the insight into the route in, the route out, any possible outlets of where the suspect could have escaped from, and how he actually got into to Anne's home. So that will be key to part of that investigation. There'll be a huge amount of work with the local officers. So there'll be neighbourhood officers. We'll remember this is a very small police force, so they're going to be withdrawing resources from other parts of their force to bring them in to do their reassurance patrols, but to do house-to-house inquiries to ensure that no stone is left unturned in order to be able to build up a picture, a timeline of exactly what has happened. What was, where was Anne before this horrific incident took place, and who was she, associated with, who was she talking to? So there'll be a real detailed investigation by the homicide investigation team, but with the support of the local officers, but also they'll be collaborating with information and intelligence to see if there have been any threats to Anne recently or previously. So it's almost as if there will be, it's like like an octopus really, because there'll be a whole different range of activity ongoing where the officers that actually investigate it then start to bring this together to build up a timeline of actually what has happened here. And let's not forget, this is a 78-year-old woman. To think that somebody has come into her home, whether it's somebody that was known to her or not known to her, a 78-year-old vulnerable woman, that is something that, I can't even get my head around that at the moment, given also that Anne was an incredibly high-profile former Member of Parliament.
You make so many different points, and that final point was exactly the point made